Sorry about that abrupt stop. Here in Australia, we have something called lunch. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but here we have it. Okay. Okay.
Hurry, I'm without you, bro. You can see those refreshing things. It's gonna go down like this. Let me get this shit.
I feel lunch size. Mm-hmm.
Are you right there, buddy? Are you right? Why are you taking photo, bro?
Yeah. Okay. What a mall. Okay. How sounds so good. Well, look for Australians. No. Hello there. I'm not looking. Привет. Okay. Yes, I'm looking for a cat. Or a sink. Здравствуйте. Okay. I'm looking for a Russian.
Опять назовешься тетя.
Здравствуйте. Так, там, мало кто. I think I need a mom. It's not very good. This moss is terrible.
Yes! Turn them out like it's Harry. Harry and scary. Harry.
就是来放上音吧。It's not what? Well, I shouldn't. Okay, so that's from the reflection of myself. Yes, it will. What? I think my camera is fine. Oh, another type of what? Confused. Oh, yeah, what difference? Oh, it's right afterwards. That makes sense. What is the good enough? Okay.
你好，我的黑鬼，怎么了？
Hmm? I'm not Chinese. Think of something. What masks hold for people on?
What did it say?
It said I'm learning Russian and Russian. I'm trying to find Russian people. Where's my hands backwards? I can
say he's having sex with a young girl.
No.
What's that say? Guys, look at this guy.
It says Я учу русский. It means I'm learning Russian. My goodness, the smell of pen is horrible.
Нихуя себе. Ling ling.
Just get polarized so slow.
You're a bit odd. Who would you pick to date out of them two?
Okay. No.
What do you? What do you?
Здорово, Булай!
Oh.
Hello.
Hello. Я учу русский. Is this special?
Чего?
Я учу русский, правильно?
I think this is working. Okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I quit. I'm just gonna do it. That was boring and bad as hell. I did not enjoy that at all.
Надежду, конечно, я надеюсь, что он будет хорошим. Я надеюсь, что он... Это я повторяю слова, которые уже говорил, просто, ну, чтобы не путаться. Вы ответили честно, естественно, конечно. Я надеюсь, что мой персонаж будет хорош. Вы осознаете возможность появления боли и припадков? Ну, конечно, это же Undertale, куда без этого? Куда без боли? Это же Undertale, он причиняет боль в принципе. Понятно. Назовите вашего сосуд. Без проблем. Я называю, как обычно, как всегда, по стандарту, потому что что-то выдумывать и что-то сильно придумывать я не умею и не люблю. Поэтому вот так вот, как обычно, и без проблем. Мы назвали его Куплинов, конечно же. Мы назвали его Куплинов. А что насчет создателя? Ну, тут как бы логично, что, в принципе, все подходит, как бы тут само собой, окей. Окей, так, допустим. Да, где? Что такое? Дмитрий, я не знаю, как правильно пишется, вот так. Пишется везде по-разному, пусть будет Дмитрию. Что-то. Ладно, давай, пусть будет так. Дмитрию. Да, Дмитрию, нормально. Великолепно. Само собой, конечно. Поистине великолепно. Я не спорю. Я полностью согласен. Дмитрию. Да, так и есть. Благодарим за уделенное время. Спасибо. Это уважительно. Ваши ответы? Ваши чудесные творения будут отвергнуты.
Maybe a maple is a bad idea.
От суки.
Yes, before
Да, никому не дозволено. Выбирать, кто они есть в этом мире. Вас будут звать.
You will be called.
Я знаю, как уже. Крис. Вас будут звать Крис. Короче, это немножко неправильная фраза, потому что как бы каждый из нас волен выбирать, кем он будет в этом мире. Ну, в рамках, конечно, допустимых законов и прочего. А в этом мире, возможно, мы не имеем права выбирать, потому что этот мир создан не нами и не нам его рулить. Крис, если ты проснешься, то мы опоздаем в школу. Здесь что херово, поначалу нельзя поменять управление, приходится играть правой рукой. Ну ладно. Я буду ждать тебя на улице, ладно? Хорошо, я буду ждать тебя на улице, ладно. Короче, это Амбромба. Как ее зовут-то? Тариэль, вот, Тариэль. Комод. Окей. Какой прекрасный снаружи денек. Без проблем. Комод почти пустой, за исключением дырявой школьной беговой формы. Под кроватью лежат CD-диски, классика, джаз, религиозный религиозные диски. А еще тут игровая приставка. У нее один фирменный контроллер и один поддельный. Хорошо. Но живет, в принципе, неплохо он. Это компьютерный стол. Под ним стоят коробки, заполненные старыми книгами. Без проблем. А это клетка. Это красная тележка с ржавой птичьей клеткой внутри. Похоже, она повидала немало аварий. Окей. Вот такая вот непримечательная особо комната. А кактус, сказать о нем особо нечего. В комоде лежат мелки. Этикетки уже давно выцвели, и нет ни одного зеленого. А потому что... точно, а вот смотри, до этого я не допер. В первый раз я...
I think there's some help on book. So useful. On book. Yes. Yes, точно.
Мне скучно.
Yes, точно. Okay, that'll be very useful. Lovely. It's amazing how 0 people have watched this stream. What things can I chop? Okay, so basically he's saying me to do what I do. Okay, let me watch this through real quick. I'll put it to 2 times speed because I might already be doing most of these things.
Most people think learning a language takes years of studying, living abroad, and being born to bilingual parents. But experts
No,
at the U.S. Foreign Service Institute say that you can actually reach intermediate fluency in just 6 months. Now, I'm bilingual in Spanish, and I have a fancy certificate to prove it, but it took me way longer than it should have to get here. And if I knew then what I know now, I could have saved myself years. So in this video, I'll show you what actually works for learning a language fast, the mistakes that will slow you down, and the sacrifices you'll have to make. And some of my tips might shock you because here's the truth. Fast language learning is an oxymoron. It takes time. Let's just look at the world champions of language
relatively small channel. Okay, from what I can see,
learning, babies. It takes them years to learn
The
how to talk,
videos
right? But the good news is
well
you're smarter than a baby.
produced.
Probably. Now, I won't promise fluency in a week like some YouTubers. I learned Spanish the traditional way.
okay, what I will like and subscribe if he gives tips that are good and he's not saying buy my course. I don't know what these are. I assume they're sponsors. Visa? I don't need a visa. I don't. That'll be
I studied in school, and then I lived in Spain for 2 years as an English teacher, and now I live in Mexico with my Mexican wife. And I've realized that there's no shortcut to fluency. Learning a language is like navigating a maze. Sometimes you hit a dead end. But if your goal is just to speak and be understood, then you can make that maze much simpler. And the first step is to skip learning grammar. Now, I know this is going to make a lot of 6th grade language teachers very upset, and I apologize. But the truth is that you don't need to understand the grammar to speak a language.
I don't think I had any 6th grade grammar teachers. I only had one 6th grade teacher. Well, I did also have a PE and music, and Chinese, but that's about it.
Okay, let's look at our favorite language learners again. Babies. They don't understand the grammar when they start speaking. They just start making noises, which eventually form words, and then they eventually start making sentences. And they're not worried about being perfect
Русский военный корабль. Was that kind of the first word?
right off the bat. They don't even know what grammar is, right? They're just trying new things and
I think my first word was probably pretty good.
trying to communicate. That's the most important thing. They just copy what they hear and start practicing
My first word was actually gung, which means arise in Vietnamese.
something. It doesn't sound good at first, but babies aren't embarrassed to make a mistake. So you should focus on your ability to communicate, not necessarily being perfect and understanding every bit of grammar, right? We're looking to just be understood, to just speak and understand.
We're actually titles. I know I don't do it much, but please, it'll make everyone's life so much better, especially people trying to learn language.
What we're listening to. For that, you don't need to be an A student. C's get degrees, right? You want to be a C student. You want to be average. You want to be intermedio. You want to be in the middle. So yeah, there's some grammar concepts that you do need to understand. Pronouns, how to conjugate verbs, where to place adjectives. But the deeper you get in,
Conjugating verbs is hard, especially in Russian, because there's like, hold on, let me get my declinative now. Yes. Yes. Eat. Oh, yes. Oh no, yeah, I do mean yes. Yeah. How am I supposed to conjugate this? This is ridiculous. I don't think... quite hard to conjugate, okay? So this is a ridiculous table that's imperfective, and I assume there's also a perfective. It might not be. Infinitive. I don't even know what that is. Is yes. Active. Present. What do these mean? I know what these mean and what tenses are. But, also, where's first? Oh, past tense. Okay. This is so strange though. Am I supposed to know how to conjugate a verb like this? Like, I'm supposed to turn есть into едение. I'm not that good.
Into it, it just becomes a rabbit hole.
English verb conjugations aren't that hard. Like, relatively, they're not that hard. But there aren't like 20 of them.
Where you're learning things that, like, when I was learning Spanish, I was learning things that I don't even understand in English. Past participles and gerunds and phonetics, the subjunctive, and all this stuff that just sort of like bogged down my brain.
Phonetic and a bit of linguistics,
with unnecessary information.
especially phonetics, for me, helps when learning a language. Like, I might still be saying so. Like, I wouldn't be able to pronounce as well as I can, which isn't well, but it's better than nothing. For example, I can pronounce, I know the difference between fr and sh, which is palatal art, and I know what palatalization is. It's hard, but it's there.
And I sort of had to like think through all these things every time I wanted to talk. It just confused me and it slowed me down. Really, you don't need to know all that stuff. Obviously, if you want to go deeper into the language, you should go back and learn these things, but that's just up to you how far you want to go. A lot of the times, like a native speaker, they will, first off, they'll understand you, and if they don't, they'll give you grace if you're at least trying to speak the language, and they'll show you more respect for trying than if you just expect them to understand your language. So that's why you shouldn't focus on this next mistake either, which is focusing too much on pronunciation. When I was working as an English teacher in Spain, the biggest obstacle that held my students back was their fear of talking. They thought that they would make a mistake, they would embarrass themselves, or they just wouldn't be understood.
In my opinion, if you can understand someone and you can be understood by most people, and you don't sound like and even if you sound like an idiot, you'll probably be fine. But if you pronounce not too bad, like people can understand you, you should be fine. You don't need to be pronounced perfectly, and also regional accents exist. Apparently, Russian doesn't have many, but. English, for example, if you're learning American English, someone from America might say, yeah, you sound perfect. And someone from Australia, like me, might say, you sound like an idiot.
It's true that sometimes you'll run into those types of people out in the world who are probably just miserable people anyways, and yeah, they'll give you a hard time for your accent or for the way you talk. But 9 times out of 10, you'll run into nice people who will try to help you and make an effort to understand you. At least that's what I found. And so if you get too caught up on pronunciation, you won't start talking, which is the most important thing to get the needle to move when you want to learn a language. Because you have to get...
Yeah, you have to start before you can get good. You can't expect to just read forever and then if you want to talk well, you have to talk. And you have to listen to people who talk as well. You said well so much.
Get your newly forming foreign language brain connected to your mouth as soon as possible. And you can only do that by talking. Now, if you are too caught up on your pronunciation and you want to improve it, then there is a way to do that, and I call it the Jim Carrey method. Now, this is something I just invented, and I don't know if academics would say it's the best method, but basically it involves pretending to be a native speaker, right? So we all know who Jim Carrey is. He's a legendary actor who's played iconic roles in movies like The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, The Grinch. He is so good at embodying these larger-than-life characters that, I mean, they are so exaggerated. They're cartoon characters, but he does that so well because he's just a master impersonator and character actor. So what is the Jim Carrey method? That is when you try to impersonate a native speaker. You fake your accent when you're speaking in your target language. And it's gonna feel weird at first. It's gonna feel like offensive maybe, or like you're gonna make somebody angry, but it's just practicing the sounds you need to make in your target language. Alrighty then. And what you're doing when you do that is you're training your mouth to move in a way that makes the noises that you need to make. And you're training your vocal cords to make the tones that
Does Matt Cannon's trying to speak in a Russian accent? Hello, I speak Russian. Actually, let me... Hello, I speak Russian. Hello, I speak Russian. I am learning English. Is that what you're trying to tell me to do?
that you need today, right? So, je parle français, je parle comme ça. Quando hablo español, hablo así. Quando parlo italiano, parlo così. Now, these are exaggerated accents, and the hand gesture might not be necessary, but it helps. I don't know. I feel like some people are going to disagree with me on this one, but let me know in the comments. Would you rather speak Italian with an exaggerated Italian accent or with an indecipherable American accent? But to find an accent you want to copy and try out for yourself, you need to be digesting a lot of your target language. Now, the most repeated advice you'll hear on the internet about learning a language is to focus on input. And that's because it works. Input is anything that you can read or listen to, but input alone won't cut it. Anybody who watches anime with the subtitles or K-dramas or telenovelas, hey, I'm not here to judge, you'll know that just watching in a foreign language won't make you absorb and understand the language. If that were true, every 30-year-old who lives in their mother's basement and owns a body pillow would be speaking fluent Japanese. Okay, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. I watch anime and I don't have a body pillow. So you need to start thinking of your brain as a computer, right? And language out there in the world is data. Hear me out. When you type on a keyboard or you click a mouse, your computer's CPU processes the physical input of tapping the mouse or hitting a key and turns it into digital data. Then the computer runs calculations to figure out what to do with that data. Your brain does the same thing. It interprets words and context and extracts meaning to form responses. But a computer knows what to do with the data it receives because it's programming. So you need to program your brain. Now, the way you program your brain to understand a foreign language is by attaching meaning to that foreign language. And there's a lot of ways you can do this, so I'm going to walk you through them. Now, the worst way is just by picking up a random novel in a foreign language. These aren't meant for language learners, so there's very little information that you can process. The best case scenario if you try reading a book in a foreign language without knowing the language is that you'll have to stop and
Okay, so that's something I'm doing wrong.
translate every single word in a dictionary or Google Translate. Because all you see is text on a page. Like, there's no pictures, and unless the book is made for language learners, there's no context to understand its meaning. So skip these entirely, even kids' books. A step above foreign books is using a textbook that's designed
Never mind.
for language learners. Now, I highly recommend you start here if you're starting from zero, because these types of books are meant to help you and guide you along your journey. And they do that by working you through what's called the zone of proximal development. Now, this is an educational psychology term, and basically what you need to know is that there's a sweet spot between what you already know and what you couldn't even know with help. So, for example, if you want to learn how to ride a bike, maybe right now you can ride a tricycle, and you can ride a bike if someone's there to hold handlebars for you, or you have training wheels. But even with help, you're not going to be able to ride a bike on a tightrope. It's just too far beyond your reach. So the sweet spot is where you're challenged enough that you need help, but not so challenged that you can't progress. This zone is where learning occurs and where you need to be to start programming your brain. So beginner language textbooks are great because they put you right in that zone. They give you context because they're based in English, but they also give you explanations and exercises that help you program your brain so you can turn input into intake. Now, the difference there is that input is just general data or information out there in the world, right? Like street signs that you don't understand, watching anime with English subtitles, just getting input. Intake is what you understand and you're storing in your RAM or wherever computers store their data. Now, choosing a textbook is going to be up to you because there's no one size fits all best textbook that I can recommend. It depends on your current skill set, your goals, and your target language. But some that I've heard recommended quite often are the Learn Yourself series and the Assembly series. And I'm going to share a hack with you guys. You can get these textbooks for free.
Oh, learn your. Oh, yeah, okay. I want russki learning yourself. The separate polyglot handbook can go easy now fully into the unused corner. That was fun. Yeah. Yes, I like pixels. Why do they cost money? I mean money. I want Ruski. Okay. I went sold it. Right. Well, I want to see the reviews. Okay. Hello there, one singular concurrent viewer. Okay, well, this is boring now.
And a bunch of others on archive.org. All you have to do is make an account and you can get free PDF for digital versions of these textbooks. And if you have a library card, you can actually access your library's audiobooks, textbooks, and movies without physically having to go there if you use apps like Libby or Canopy. You can also buy used textbooks online or just visit a local bookshop. Now, I have this book here for learning French, Easy French Step by Step, and it's good. I like it.
Okay, web-based textbook. Merge tool. No. I don't even know what a merge tool is. Something else, Arsu. Between us. Us. So far off. Sure. Oh. Yeah. That's wonderful. I did not enjoy it at all. Wasn't cool. What the hell? Русский азбука. I know the Cyrillic alphabet. Learning. Oh, how far I skipping that? Okay. Okay, now I do want to see a bit of the phonetics. Yeah. Dot, god, dark, dam, daughter, daughter. Like, daughter. I don't think it's the actual. Yeah. You know, that is not the IPA, dude. This is stupid. This is not phonetics. I want actual phonetics, or just English. And this is not phonetics, completely useless. Yes, in italics. Yeah. G is written as the letter S. D is written as that thing, it's sometimes G. E is written as U. U is written as U with a with a weird angry unibrow. L is written as that Twin Towers. And is written as N. Is written as N. Yep, no. Airport. Okay. Борис. Да, нет, большое спасибо. Русская азбука. Russian book, I assume. Борщ. Борщ. Чай. Сахар. Журпаль. Русская азбука. Аэропорт. Аэропорт. Буфет. What? Гостиница. Гостиница. Oh no, гостиница. What? Гостиница? Lower Dingo told me that it's hotel. Директор. Закрыто. Запрещено. Запрещено. Интурист. What is an intourist? Касса. К себе. Не крупить. Я смотрел. От себя. Парикмахерская. Парикмахерская. I assume the way you learn these really long words in Russian is the same way I learn how to say Russian. It's probably still correct in anything. It's just, it's first, Posta, few words. Restaurant, restaurant, туалет, аэропорт, себе, от себе, себя, бар, правда, такси, стоп, Москва, Los Angeles, Pizza House, Владимир Ленин, Известия, Нью-Йорк, Glasnost, Allspice, no, Rolls Royce, Beatles, Trexie, no, Shakespeare, Helsinki, Pravda, Pizza Hut. Okay, what?
I don't have much time to study these days, unfortunately. It is good because it's working me through the language, and it's very similar. French is very similar to Spanish, so when I do have time to sit down and study, I feel like I learn pretty quickly. But the one bad part about textbooks is that there's no listening. So a lot of the words that I read, they sound completely different when I hear them in a series or a song or something like that. So I don't even recognize them. That's why the next way that you can program your brain is by watching movies, TV shows, or YouTube videos with subtitles in your target language. Now, this is one of the best ways to passively practice a language because as you're watching and listening, you read the subtitles and you understand more. It's the same thing in English. Sometimes I don't understand movies that I'm watching in English because the sound effects are too loud or for whatever reason. So I'll put English subtitles and it helps me understand. It's the same thing in a foreign language. And it feels weird at first, especially if you're not at a super high level in a second language. So you're not going to understand most of what you see and hear, but it flips a switch in your head where you turn on your second language brain. Because if you watch a show with English subtitles, you're not going to be intaking anything. You're just going to turn on your English brain and you're just going to be entertainment at that point. But if you flip the switch and you have the second language subtitles, then you're using your second language brain. And then the final and best form of input that you can receive is by speaking and practicing with native speakers or other learners. Now, the problem with this one is that it has the biggest barrier to entry because it's expensive to go travel and speak with native speakers, and classes can also be expensive and time consuming. So what I would actually recommend doing is using a platform like italki or Preply and speaking with a native speaker over a video call. You do have to pay, but it's so worth it because it's not that expensive, and even when you're living abroad in another country, you can feel like a burden asking native speakers to practice with you. So this is good because it is transactional, but you know that you're getting a native speaker who's taking the time to really help you along your journey. You can also try Omegle, but I wouldn't recommend that. Practicing speaking early and often is really important because it's probably the hardest or one of the hardest parts of learning a language. So if you want to prioritize anything, it would be speaking, and you can actually just skip writing. So this is one of those sacrifices I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Obviously, to be considered fluent in a language, you need to be able to speak, read, write, and listen, because those are the 4 pillars of language learning, and you need all 4 of them to build a strong base. But if you had to get rid of one of them, you can have a bar stool that has 3 legs, right? You only need 3. If you need to write a message to somebody, like a text message, you can use ChatGPT or Google Translate, same thing for emails. And unless it's like an academic setting, in the everyday world, we don't write that much. Especially, again, if your goal is to speak and be understood as well as understand other people, then your focus should be on listening and speaking practice, and reading as well to understand and learn more vocabulary. So again, let's go back to babies. Babies don't learn to read and write until they're older, right? So they first start by listening and then speaking. And then once they're a few years older, they learn to read and write. So if I were starting a language that has nothing to do with my native language, like Chinese or Hindi, and the writing system is completely different, then I just would skip it if my goal was just to speak. Now, this next thing that will slow you down as a language learner is something that slowed me down for years. And it took so long for it to finally click, but once it did, it made a huge difference. And that is to not translate. So it sounds kind of counterintuitive. How can you learn a language if you're not translating? Now, when you're first starting out,
Yeah, especially if you're learning a language with grammar really different to the ones like Vietnamese. I find it so much easier to just interpret the language and do a regular translation than a literal translation. And the translation can also be pretty hard, especially when some words just don't exist, such as thank you. Wait, no, not thank you. Please in Vietnamese, or mùi in English. It's apparently a taste. I have no idea what it is. It's weird how when you grow up, it's hard to learn what different tastes and emotions are.
that is the only way to learn because you need to have like a point of reference to learn the new language. But as you get further into your learning, you want to sort of like detach yourself from your native language or like detach yourself from your ego because you're so attached to your native language that you want to use it to interpret a new language. But sometimes there's just not word for word translations of words or phrases. And you need to sort of like understand the vibe more than really understand the exact translation, the grammar behind it and all that, because that'll just bog you down. Whereas you can just get the gist of a phrase.
If you apparently it is a lot of the times it's used regular person pronouns, not animal or whatever it is, whichever one's first. Like yo, yisho, yisho. Yeah.
Or word and like know the meaning behind it without being so attached to the exact translation. And I'll give you an example. In Spanish, the word feo means ugly, but you can use it for so much more than just ugly. You can basically use it to say anything that's like bad, undesirable, or unpleasant. In Spanish, you can say huele feo, something smells bad, but the direct translation would be it smells ugly. And in English, ugly is usually used for like appearances, right? For what things look like. So you wouldn't say something smells ugly. That's like the little change I'm talking about. Like you don't translate directly, but you get the vibe of the word. You know what the word means and what it's trying to say. Another example is right now I'm trying to learn Japanese, and so I know the phrase hajime mashite gozo yoroshiku. I sort of know it, right? But that phrase means like nice to meet you. I hope you take care of me, which is not something I would ever say in English, but it's just part of the culture and the language in Japan, and it's something nice to say. So I'm learning that phrase, and I'm not thinking the direct translation of what each word and part of the word means. That's what you need to do. You need to know the vibe of the word or the intended meaning of a word or phrase more so than the exact translation, because that'll bog you down because you're still using your native brain and you want to use your new foreign brain. So this is why I hate language learning apps so much, because they just focus on translating and they don't help you actually build out your foreign language brain. Now I'm going to let you in on a little secret that the language learning industry doesn't want you to know, and that is that language learning apps are not made to teach you a language. They're made to make money. In fact, they oftentimes purposely make it harder for you to learn the language so that you have to pay to upgrade your plan and get the better features. For example, you only have a certain amount of credits that you can use in a certain day before they regenerate, so you only get so many lessons, or you have to watch an ad to continue your lesson. But I feel like you can learn so much more by using a textbook or just watching a YouTube video than you can by learning with a language app. I got a 500-day streak on Duolingo, and the most I learned is "Je suis un chat." When would I ever use that phrase? Ever? Unless I'm like in a Freaky Friday movie with Puss in Boots. It just doesn't make any sense why they would be teaching me that before like "nice to meet you" or learning how to count to 100, things that I could actually use if I go to a French-speaking country. But anyways, if you want to learn more about how I became fluent in Spanish, then check out this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters as always, and I hope to see you.
Okay. Nice video. Not bad. Nice. well made for a small channel. Okay, I'm gonna watch. What is something that I can watch? No, I didn't even realize that you commented. I'm so sorry, Rob. Okay. I what? Um. Let's just watch a podcast. Podcast. Okay. I've watched this before, Wes. Forgotten.
Как бы я учил русский язык, если бы мне пришлось его выучить заново с нуля? Ну, давайте об этом поговорим. What's everyone? My name's Ryan, and if you're new
Not learn basic phrases. Okay, I want to learn the conjugations. I do want to know how to conjugate them. I can't conjugate anything. If you were to ask, well, I can a little bit. Like, if you were to tell me, like, yeah, yeah, no, let's see. What's it? Иди, иду, идишь, иди нахуй. Let's say иду. Right? That's correct, right? Okay. Okay. I used the wrong preposition, but yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I know. The pretty much the only thing I know is is the ish, yes, for Russia.
Conjugation, a top topic in Russian, a lot of things to learn about it today. You will have all of the details about conjugation and why you need to
pretty
know it
smart.
and how to apply it in Russian. Conjugation is when we take verbs, like let's say играть, to play, and we turn it to играю, I'm playing. This change of this t to you is conjugation. We also have it in English too. To play, or I play, he plays. So this s at the end is added whenever we have the third person singular, right? So we also have it in English too, but unlike in English, in Russian we have 6 forms compared to only 2 forms in English. So let's learn all the details about Russian conjugation right now. Let's take a verb играть, to play. Играть is an infinitive, so it's not conjugated yet. And we need these 6 lines. Я for I, ты for you singular, мы for we, вы for you plural, он, она, оно for he, she, and it, and они for they. Like I said, we have 6 forms, and we're going to have 1 form for each of these. So, я играю, ты играешь, мы играем, вы играете, он, она, оно играет, and они играют. So we have a different ending for each of these.
On, ana, ano, in, with the clause. You, he, she, it.
Personal pronouns. Of course, conjugation is not only used with personal pronouns, we can replace these with an actual word. Like, let's say, папа играет, dad is playing, мама играет, mom is playing, друзья играют, friends are playing. So as you can see, these personal pronouns are just placeholders for first person, second person, third person, etc. Of course, we can replace them with any word that we have. Oh, that's clear. But now let's take a closer look at this conjugation. What happened to the infinitive? What do we do? Let's become scientists now and study the science of the Russian language. Играть, to play, ends on this at. We don't take away the whole ending at, we took away the last 2 letters, t. T got chopped off, and then we replaced that t with the proper ending, right? You for я, ешь for ты, etc. So this играть is the first group of conjugation. We have 2. This is the first group. All verbs that end on at and ять, like let's say a verb гулять, will also be in the same exact group, in the first group. So endings at and ять are in the first group.
Okay, well, let's ask ChatGPT. That's in the profile because you can't see them. Give me 10. How about that? Give me 10% love and be much love. Понимаете? Понимаю, понимаешь, понимаем, понимаете, понимаете, понимают. Работать. Работа. When. Infinitive. Okay, they are all infinitive. Работать. Работаю. Работаешь. Работаем. Работаете. Работает. Работают. Играть. Играть. Говорить. Говори. Говорю. Говоря. Говоряет. Говораешь. I do not like this. Okay. This is boring. Check the co-pilot isn't giving me. Okay, wait, no. I'm just being. One minute.
And that's their contribution. Take a screenshot, jot it
So
down.
apparently, according to Copilot, говорить ends in at or yet. Literally does not.
That's the conjugation of the first group. Hope it's clear. This is super simple. We take a verb, like играть, infinitive, and then we chop off the last tip, right? Gone. And then we replace it with a proper ending. Like я играю, you is used here, ты играешь, ешь is used here, etc. Super simple in theory. In practice, this might take some time to make it automatic, but don't worry, we'll talk about the practice of this at the end of the video. Now let's get back. Whenever there's a first group, there must be a second group. Second group is verbs like говорить.
So read that as 3M. What the hell? No, it's just that.
Eat, that ends on eat. Sometimes we have verbs like смотреть that end on yet. So eat and yet are both in this second group.
Okay.
Now, let's take away the смотреть and focus on говорить. Я говорю, ты говоришь, мы говорим, вы говорите, он, она, оно говорит, они говорят. Second group must be different from the first somehow. Of course, it's obvious. Let's in fact compare them side by side. The endings are different. Obviously, for some of the words, the endings are different. The ones that are highlighted right now, they're different. But also, there's a second difference there. With the first group, we only chopped off t, right? A stayed there in the ending. For the second group, we chop off the whole ending eat. So we don't have e in the conjugated form, as you can see, right? So we don't have that. And that's the main difference between the first and the second groups, is that with the first, the vowel stays there. Only 2 letters get chopped off.
Like that these end in two. All these others end in different things. Scary.
And then we conjugate the verb. For the second group, we take it with the whole 3 letters of the end of the word. And you think that we are done. Second group, that's it? No. We have the third group of Russian verbs, which are infinitives. Not really a group, but we're going to make it one. Infinitives. Like, let's say a verb есть, to eat. Super basic verb, to eat, right? We conjugate it like this. Я ем, ты ешь, мы едим, вы едите, он ест, они едят. First of all, the conjugated forms have almost nothing to do with the infinitive. They have no similarities whatsoever besides the first letter yeah. All the rest are different. And also, within the conjugated forms, there is no clear pattern really, right? So you'll encounter verbs like this, where there's no way to predict its conjugated form from the infinitive. No way whatsoever. But those verbs will be super common, and then over time you will kind of learn the conjugated forms of all of those verbs and you'll be good to go. Why does this happen? Russian is a super old language, and so maybe thousands of years back there was a rule in place. But as people kept on using it, the simplicity of the language or the simplicity of the conjugation wins over the rules. It's much better for us to sound more freely or to speak faster than to adhere to some rule that was set. And so the most
So yeah, едите is faster than есть.
common verbs have this in common because they were used so much that we needed to simplify them at some point in history. And so now we are stuck with this chore of remembering all the verbs, all the forms of all the infinitives. For you guys as learners of Russian as a second language, this is a chore. But in fact, this is a simplification of the language. We kind of remove all the difficult parts of the language to help that language evolve. And so that's why we have these forms of jest that are super unpredictable. And there's a ton of other verbs that will look just
Because it's good that I'm learning it now, not 500 years ago, I guess.
like this. But
What
where
are-
you practice these exceptions is through practice. Now, let's talk about practice. If you want a simple way where you don't have to create anything for yourself, then we have already created a ton of exercises. If you want to join Be Fluent, if you want to create your own exercises, I would say that you
I
have
do
to
want to see what
join Be
they
Fluent, yet you can join for free and access these exercises with the second. I would say that you have to do two things. You cannot simply drill the table of conjugation. That'll be okay, but it's not going to be good for long term. You'll forget it pretty quickly. Instead, take a verb, take all the forms of that verb. Let's say back to играть right here, right? Take all of these forms and create a sentence with each of them. But don't look at the table when you're conjugating a verb. Try to test yourself from your memory. Test your memory on how good it is with all of these forms. If you are looking at a table and then you're writing a sentence off of that table, then when you're going to be speaking to a person, you won't have it in front of you. You won't have this table in front of you. So we have to prepare as if we have nothing to fall back on. And that will ensure a long-term memory of these endings and all of these patterns. But in any case, you can join Be Fluent with this button right here to learn more about Russian conjugation, other topics, or keep on watching our YouTube videos.
Okay, didn't really learn much from that. I do want to know how. All I can really do is ish.
Привет! Before we start with a new topic, let's quickly recap the previous one. Let's imagine you are in a Russian-speaking country and you need to explain something in English. How would you start a conversation?
I didn't watch the
You would say, извините, вы говорите по-английски. Ну,
Why are you writing it, capitalizing the stress syllable? 5 years old, come on. This, whichever accent exists, it's useful. Whether you
немного, извините, вы говорите по-английски. Ну, немного. What does it mean? Right, it means I do speak English, but a little bit. Нет, я не говорю по-английски. Я говорю только по-русски и немного по-немецки. What does that mean? It means I don't speak English, I only speak Russian and a little German. If you're having troubles with this, you might want to revisit the previous lesson. Today, we'll talk about conjugating verbs. Actually, it's one of the easiest things in learning Russian, and one of the most rewarding too, because it allows you to start speaking and expressing yourself. In Russian, there are 3 tenses: present, past, and future. We'll start with the present. The present tense describes an action that is either happening now at this very moment or happens regularly in the present time. Verbs in the present tense change their endings depending on a persona: I, you, we, they, and so on. This process is called conjugation. And it also exists in other languages too, like in Spanish, French, or Italian. So, first of all, we'll need to know Russian personal pronouns. Here they are. Repeat after me. Я, ты, он, она, оно. Nouns in Russian have genders: masculine, feminine, or neuter. And it doesn't matter whether it is a person or just an object in your room, you will call them as he, she, or it. For example, a table in Russian is stol. It's masculine, so it is a he. Он. An arm is рука. It's feminine, so it's она. The sun, солнце, is neuter, so it's оно. Alright, let's move on. Мы.
You say that non-binary people are it's.
Они. And one more time from the beginning. Я. Ты.
Ты.
Он. Она. Оно. Мы. Вы. Они. Great job. Now try to read them on your own.
Я, ты, он, она, оно, мы, вы. Ignore the line.
Perfect. Now I'll give you a couple of examples of how you conjugate a verb in Russian. And we'll also talk about how you can make this process of conjugation automatic in your head, so that you don't need to think about it when speaking Russian. And in the description, I'll also share a site where you can check conjugations of Russian verbs. If you open a dictionary to look for a verb, you will find it in the infinitive form. What is it? Infinitive form is a form of a verb before any changes. In English, it sounds as to talk, to look, to listen.
Who says to?
In Spanish, it is hablar,
Like
mirar, escuchar. Or in Italian, it would be parlare, guardare, ascoltare. In Russian, verbs in the infinitive form end with t. For example,
What? Really?
говорить, смотреть, слушать. So, if you see a verb ending with t, you know it's an infinitive form. Now, let's conjugate the verb говорить. Я говорю. Ты говоришь. Он говорит. Она говорит. Мы говорим. Вы говорите. Они говорят. There is a part of this verb that doesn't change, and its endings depend on a persona who is speaking. Я, ты, он, она, and so on. Я говорю по-русски. Он говорит по-английски. Ты говоришь по-английски. Нет, я не говорю по-английски. Now, let's compare the conjugation of the verb говорить to the verbs слушать and слышать. Я говорю. Я слушаю. Take into account that it's important to pronounce both vowels at the end. Я слушаю. Я слышу. Ты говоришь. Ты слушаешь. Ты слышишь. Он говорит. Он слушает. Он слышит. Она говорит. Она слушает. Она слышит. Мы слышим. Verb would. So you can see that when you say я, a verb would end with you or u, and both belong to the same pair of vowels. That's why it's so helpful to learn Russian vowels in pairs.
Yeah.
If a verb ends with sh, you know that it's the ты form. For мы, verbs would end with m. For вы, they end with те. The biggest difference, which is not even that big, will be with the third persona in the plural form, они. You can also see that you spell ye in some endings, and in others you spell e. It's important for the right spelling, but guess what? In most cases, it sounds the same.
Good.
Ты говоришь, ты слушаешь, ты слышишь. Он говорит, он слушает, он слышит. Мы говорим, мы слушаем, мы слышим. Вы говорите, вы слушаете, вы слышите. If you're a beginner in Russian, the first thing that you should do is look for and understand the patterns in conjugating verbs in Russian. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Be more afraid of not speaking at all. At the same time, it's important to make this process of conjugation automatic in your head so that you don't need to think about an appropriate form when speaking Russian. And for that, I strongly recommend you the following technique. Read the conjugation of a new verb together with personal pronouns 3 to 5 times. Don't try to memorize it, just read it thoughtfully, paying attention to the patterns. Then close the conjugation and try to write it down by memory. After you are done, compare what you've written to the right conjugation. Take notes of your mistakes, if you made any, and do it once again. Once you feel familiar with this verb, move on to the next one. Do the same thing. When you feel confident with it, try to write down the conjugations of both of these verbs, and so on. Pay special attention to the stress in verbs, because sometimes it jumps from one part of the verb to another, like in the verb смотреть. You say «я смотрю», but «ты смотришь», «он смотрит», and till the rest of the conjugation, the emphasis is on the first syllable. Also, try to not confuse the verbs слушать and слышать, which is a common mistake of many Russian learners. They would say «я слышаю» instead of «я слышу», or «я слушаю» instead of «я слушаю». In the description, I'll share the site where you can find the correct conjugation for Russian verbs.
I have this thing that. Alright, I'm gonna record myself using a tool. Okay. Yeah, this tool I kind of made. Well, not just. Oh, no. It is. It's this one. And it's not great in any way. It's not supposed to be. It's really, really bad, actually. But it works, and by work I mean it does what I want it to. Serves the purpose and does it why. One view, that's depressing. My dear. Okay, that's bad. Hold on. Oh no, you can't see it. Good. Okay. Open, please. Спасибо. Okay. Это нехорошо. Это плохо. It's not supposed to happen. OBS, stop crashing. Oops. Нет. Oops. 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 Stop crashing. OBS, what are you doing? Why flashing? Okay, that's good. Good boy for not crashing. Okay, okay. This is the thing I made. Really, basically what I have is a notebook. I translate words from this text into here. Yeah. What other text should I have? I should have something else. You can add files in the texts folder. Just txt. That's fine. I think this is kind of seamless flashcards. Grocery. Groceries. Расцветали. Awesome. Apple trees. Туман над рекой. Века теперь она перекричит. Высокий пейк над крутой. I don't know if that's still. Oh, okay. Ah. Also means. Oh, you both got you for Просыпаемся груши, папа туман телефон. Выходи на берег кончился, на высокий берег крутой. Высадила песню говорила, проститную беседа говорила. Про то, как ты попали. There's a lot of those. Про то, песня для влюбленных. Ой, ты песня, песенка величия. Ты за ясным солнцем свет. Улыбается недавним по крайней тем. Раскатуши берег привет. О, солнце, ведь девушку простую. Просто слышит, как он запоет. Okay. This is stupidly